Okay, good morning, class. Let me actually start with today's class talking about the exams which is coming about final exams, and you all know that the like you've already received mail from the college, and very soon we will have the exams, and so you will actually have to start getting ready with your exams. Like I know you have a lot of assessments to complete, but you also have to get ready with it, right? And so I start today's class with actually talking about the last week's assessment that you all had done. Like most of you have done it correctly, but then some of you, like your assessment was to have, when you're talking about success and failure of organization, where you take up the actual case with respect to Levin's model and Kotter's model. Like most of you have done it correctly, but some of you, actually what you've done is you've given me the example, like you've explained what happened without relating it to the theory, either of the theories. So that doesn't help. You've left it for me to actually find out and relate it to the theory. That is not what is accepted, but that is not what is expected from you, right? You have to do it. If you do not do this, then it will be really difficult for you to for your exams, right? It will be really difficult. You have to relate it. You have to follow my instructions. I've been giving you instructions, so you have to follow that. Okay, so be very careful with what has been done. Now, let me go to the start today's class. Let me actually start the class, give on my presentation, the discussion, and then we can actually go with the next part of the today's class, where we discuss about today's assessment. Okay, so let me actually start today's class. Okay, right. So let's start with today's class, which talks about stress. Now, what is stress? Stress is a dynamic condition. Now, what condition? What condition are we talking about? Uh, any individual, all of us, or individuals like us, we are faced with. There are opportunities in our life. There are some hurdles in our life, or there are certain demands, certain tasks, certain responsibilities that we have to do, that we want to do, but the result is we do not know. It's uncertain, but it's very important, very, very important. Say new opportunities coming on our way. You would want to have new opportunities. Or when we are into a job, when you're doing something really very interesting, you will have challenges coming on your way. That's constraints, right? So, and certain expectations that you have to fulfill in your job. So that's a demand. So this all these things happen. So how do we cope up with this? The situations change, and each of us react to this in a different way, right? The things change. It doesn't remain the same, and it affects us. How does it affect us? It affects us mentally, it affects us physically, and the situation changes. Sometimes we are very stressed out, sometimes we are very happy, so we start to work, we are very interested. So as and when, what happens by the end of the day, so we get tired, or sometimes we have some unexpected changes coming up and we do not know how to cope up. So all our the full positive energy that can go down, or we may get demotivated, or we may get charged up. So that's why it's a dynamic condition. This situation changes. It's our mental health, our physical health changes because of all these new opportunities, because of the hurdles that's coming up, because of the responsibilities that's up there, expectations that we have to fulfill, and we do not know the result. It can go anywhere. So that's what stress is. Okay, now stress can be of two types: challenge stress and hindrance stress. Challenge is something very positive. It's related with your work, when workload, which is something when you join a new place, a new project, or you're starting a project, the work that has been given, that's there, you have to fulfill it. So that's a challenge. That's pressure to complete your work on time, pressure to complete your work, to cover, that is there, that you have to fulfill this work, you are there in that position, you have to do. And also the time management, your total job profile, You do certain work that you have to fulfill within the time span, time management. So, but this is the challenge. This motivates us usually. Hindrance, on the other hand, this is talking about which prevents us or which demotivates us. So, which demotivates us from reaching our goals. What sort of thing? We talk of red tapeism. Red tapeism is where we talk of nepotism, bureaucracy, all sorts of corruption that is up there. Office politics is where we have, different groups of people up there. Depends which group you belong to. If you belong to certain groups, you'll be given privilege. If you're not, then your problem. If you're not in either groups, then it's a problem. Sometimes there's also problems up there at the top level where they are fighting ego problems, so it gets affected. You want to work but you cannot do your work. And of course, there is also a problem with when you have confusion about job responsibilities. Multiple people, you have multiple bosses who are giving you instructions and you do not know what to do. You're confused. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. And hindrance stressors, that causes more harm. It's harmful. It's harmful. It can lead to problems. It can lead to problems. It can lead to depression. And then that's where counseling comes into play. Challenge stressors are more beneficial. It motivates us. So, what are the potential sources of stress that we have? We have three different types: environment, organizational, and personal. Environment is where we talk of external. Environment here is not the nature, we're talking of pestle, political, economic, social, technological, legal, anything. There could be like economic uncertainties due to changes in the business cycle. Say, for instance, right now we are having recession due to this COVID problem. So, what happens? There is an economic recession throughout the world, worldwide. People are losing jobs, there's uncertainty. So that's the problem. Political changes, when governments change, what happens? Change, new rules coming up, that affects businesses. Technological changes, when it comes up, that affects the human resources also, right? Like the human resources have to get skilled, or we need to hire people who has that new kind of skills. Sometimes what happens is, like, even if the employees are given that new skills with the training given to them, we may not require those employees, all of them, what has to be done. So that's a big challenge. That is external. The internal is where we talk of organizational factors. Now, first thing that comes up is with related to jobs and tasks that are related to the job. A particular job is their project. What are the work that has to be done? So that is there. What are the different types? So you need to clarify. That's where the proper planning comes into play. What are the things, milestones that has to be done to achieve your target? Then comes up with the functions, roles, like who should be assigned with what kind of role. So this is where we talk of decentralization power, accountability comes into play, responsibility comes into play. So putting the right person at the right place. The third that comes up here is the interpersonal relationship amongst employees. If you're not comfortable working with certain people, how would you work together? Like in a department, 10 or 12 people are working and people are not having a good and healthy professional relationship, then it's very difficult to work. That is also a challenge. But everyone is equally qualified. Because of that, in lack of interpersonal relationships, the work becomes difficult. Third comes up is where we talk at the personal level. Now, personal level is where we have our individual level. So family and the personal relationships are there. If we can have problems at a personal level, family issues, personal problems. So that affects also the work. We are affected mentally, physically, and it affects our work also. uh, Economic problems come up where when we have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of demands, a lot of targets to fulfill, but our my earning that we earn, that is a limitation. So but the expenses are high, we have to do it. Then what do? We think of it, and that actually leads to certain people involved into illegal activities, trying to earn money in illegal ways. That also happens. Then comes up is the personality problems coming from basic disposition. Here, where basic disposition, we are talking of the basic mental health status we're talking of. Like, if we do not have a proper health status, then what happens if you're mentally disturbed? That affects us. personality also. It helps us. It affects us. I'm sorry. It affects us, and then we do not know. And that's where counseling is very much required. Okay, so next comes up is the consequences. Consequences of stress. Now, these stressors can be additive. It goes on piling. It doesn't release the problem. It goes on increasing. And what happens as a result of this? There can be different types of risks. One is physiological, one is psychological, and the third is behavioral. Now, when we talk of physiological stress, we're talking of blood pressure. People have tend to have high blood pressure. You get to have headaches. Sometimes heart attacks happen. Psychological, this is your physical thing. Psychological is where we talk of mental conditions. We tend to get dissatisfied. We get tensed and anxious. Sometimes we are irritated, angry. We get bored. Sometimes there is procrastination where there is a tendency to delay the work or just postpone the work. And the worst thing that comes up is where there is when the roles are unclear, when there is conflicting things like you don't know. Say for instance, it happens that you are in a job, you are working, you loved your job because, and you want to improve yourself because, and that would also, you're earning a huge amount of money. That is also helping you in the sense it is helping you to fulfill all your basic needs, your family needs. You're happy, you want to move ahead, but at the same time you have some of your bosses saying, okay, you want to move ahead, but you have to get involved into do some illegal activities or give some benefits, undue benefits to certain people. So that's conflicting. You do not know what to do. Or when you have two bosses or three bosses giving you have multiple bosses giving you instructions which are totally opposite to each other, you don't know what to do. You are tensed, but you want to actually do a good job. The third comes up is behavior, a behavior pattern, a behavior in the job, change in the job behaviors, the way we behave in the job place. We tend to become aloof. We tend to become hostile. We start shouting at people. It can happen. People start increasing their smoking or drinking habits. Right? It goes on sometimes. Either you increase or you start doing it. Food habits changes. Sometimes we start speaking very fast and too much of speaking happens. That happens. We tend to fidget. Fidget means when you can't stay quietly calm at one place. You're just moving your fingers, doing something or the other. You are tensed. Or when you have problems in your sleep, you cannot sleep. That's also due to tension, due to stress. Now, sometimes we shout at people, but that's not the thing. Like, we have to understand. We say, oh, this person is not, I don't think it's reliable, can be a reliable person. And so one has to also look into the thing that maybe the person is under stress. And that needs to be dealt in a different way, in a more benign way, more sensitive way. Now, whatever we discussed right now is done in this model. That's a model of stress. We just discussed about the sources of stress, where we said environmental, organizational, and personal stresses factors. All these factors results in any person experiencing stress, but the kind of stress that differs. So there is a difference. It varies from person to person, and so there are certain factors which results in these differences. One is the perception. Perception is comes from the word perceive. How do you look into the situation? Your way of looking into it, that differs. Job experience. Person who's more matured in that job, who has a job experience, has been working in that place, or has more numbers of years of experience, job experience, is much more matured, can handle things in a better way. Social support comes from support from the society, support from friends, support from your colleagues. So that also matters. That those who have support works in a different way, react in a different way. Belief in locus of control, the belief that you can control, you are in control of the situation, you can control, that belief has to be there. Those who have that belief can actually able to tackle the situation even if they are not in control. But if you have the belief that yes, I can do it, you can still do it. Self-efficacy means self-efficiency. How efficient are you? If you are really efficient, effective, then you can handle stress in a better way. Hostility is when animosity, when people don't talk to each other, right? So If there is a huge amount of animosity between you and your colleagues, then it's difficult to work. Where the animosity is less, or where there is professional differences, but otherwise it's fine, that's easier to work. So that all these sources are the same. People have to undergo stress, but the nature and the degree of stress that varies. And what happens as a result of it, we just discussed, it can lead to physiological symptoms, it can lead to psychological symptoms, and it can lead to behavioral symptoms. So we come to the last part of today's class where we talk of how to manage stress. Now you see in this diagram on the y-axis we are actually measuring the performance, and the x-axis talks about stress. Now what happens, like when you join in a job, you are expected to perform at a certain level. You are given new tasks, new challenges, so which demands like you put in more effort, right? So you are expected to improve your performance. Expect there are certain benchmarks that you have to achieve. That's set. So as the work demand, your work demands more and more of commitment, what happens? There will be stress. These are challenge stresses. So what happens? Your performance level goes up when you are able to take these stresses. At some point, you see this is going on increasing. With the increase in the stress, performance also increases up till a certain point, beyond which what happens, even when the stress goes on, your performance level goes down. So this is the region which we talk of challenger stress, which stressor the challenge stressors, where what happens, like you are able to take it, this motivates you to go come up with better performance. And when you reach your peak, the peak is there when you reach the maximum point, beyond which you are not able to take it anymore. You can't take that stress anymore. So then what happens, people are actually up there to prevent you from performing. Your performance level goes down. So this part is the hindrance stressor, right? So the last thing that we have is, how do we man when we talk of managing stress, how do we do it? There are two different approaches. One is from the individual side approach, and the other is organizational side. This is micro and this is macro. Then so what happens is, first that comes up is at the individual level is time management. There are a lot of work, right? Today you all were telling that you had so many work to do, that so many assessments, so many tests, and time is so short. So it's depends on how well you can manage your time, the time management. You may be a better time management person than me. The way I do it, you may do it in a different way. It varies from person to person, but we have to find out a time how we can cope up with the work. Second comes up is with physical exercise. Physical exercise is one of the best way to solve your stress, to reduce stress. Like what happens is, if you're really stressed out, what happens? You can actually go for some walks. Like what I do is, when I have been under stress and all, so I have been right now. What I do is, every morning at 4:50 a.m. I go to the football ground, and I complete 12 laps in 1 hour, followed by another 15 to 20 minutes in the gym. The days when I cannot do it, go to the workout session in the ground or the gym, like today when it's raining so badly, I walk in my apartment. I just count and I start walking up and down across the rooms, and that helps. It's a good way to release your tension. Relaxation training, there has to you need to know how to come to how to relax yourself. It could be reading a book, seeing movies, listening to music, sometimes just watching the nature, birds singing, people going out and on, walking, seeing. That helps. That also, just listening, seeing them, looking at nature, that calms you. Okay. And the last that comes up is to increase your social support network, right? Connect to people, that have friends who would help you, who would be there for you. It's not that you have to go and sit every day and just start gossiping, but you sit, go do your work, but you should have people to whom can reach out, who can share you, who can discuss, with whom you can discuss your problems, who can share your problems, who can come up help you with suggestions. That helps. That is required. The second part that we come up is organizational. So under organizational approach, the first thing is the organization should have the right policy for selection of employees based on their qualification and based on what the job demands. And when you go to apply, you'll see that certain qualifications are required, not that is degrees, not just degrees, but then in the interview they will ask you how well are you to cope up with these demands, these stresses. So anyone and everyone cannot fit for a particular job. So there has to be a proper selection process and still proper, not just selecting but also recruiting the right person at the right position. Training has to be given to all employees how to cope up with the job, what does your job demand, to training for the skills, and also training how you can manage stress. That is important. Goals, setting up of goals which are realistic, which can be achievable, makes a lot of sense. If that is there, then proper planning is can be done. We get to know what has to be done, how to go about, so we are less stressed, we are more focused. Redesigning of jobs is important because sometimes we tend to get so bored. Same thing going on. It's a monotonous work which is going on. So redesigning of the jobs makes it a little more, bringing in some changes in the existing nature of the job. If it's so bringing some new features, that would make it more interesting. Even the employees would be more motivated to increase the employee involvement. Actually, here that's where we talk about is decentralization of power, getting feedback from employees, because it's the employees who are actually doing the work, and based on the instruction that is being given from the top level, and these employees are actually dealing with the external stakeholders. They know what the problem is, so they should be able to actually get involved. They should be able to decide, make a decision, have a say, and that helps in accountability, that helps in building up responsibility, so employees would feel part of the organization, they would dedicate, they would feel it, that is there. And with this comes up also a communication that's related. So there has to be two-way communication system. From the top, instructions are given, employees are doing the work, whatever problems or when the positive aspects that's coming out as a result of that the work, that feedback should be given to the top level management, and employees should feel free to give it without any feeling like hindrance or feeling uncomfortable. That should be there. So it has to be a two-way interaction system, two-way communication system. Based on the feedback, the top management should make the next decision. Sometimes offering employees sabbaticals. Sabbaticals is a temporary leave from job. So what happens is, like when you tell them that you can take a leave and go for a short break and come, that would help also to relax your mind, to become fresh. Or sometimes, here what we used to have at RV, like previously, the in-service students were coming for the day classes. So for 3 years, they were not going to college. Their offices, they were here, and all their expenses were borne by their offices. So the condition was once they finished their graduation, they would have to return to their office, sit for the RCST exams, that is mandatory, and then work for 6 years. And then only can they leave their jobs or go for another higher further studies. But if they leave in the middle before they complete the 6 years, they have to compensate, pay for it. So that's there. So you are actually sending people for higher studies. It's for their benefit, so that when they come back, it's going to help the organization. And the last that comes up is to establish corporate wellness program. It's the well-being of the overall well-being of the employees. It's not just work, like they need some relaxation. So having some gyms, having some sort of recreation, some games, some mental health training, physical health training, some it should be there. The societal awareness training, so that also helps, because we are talking of the overall development of the employees. It's not just work. The person will be doing the work, provided the person is physically as well as mentally fit. That is there. Okay, so that's what we have for today's class. Uh, right, and that actually finishes the uh, the portion for this chapter also. Okay, so now let me actually talk to you about our assessment that we have today. Now, this is based on the stress, managing stress. So you have to take up an example of a organization which is being able to able to be successful because of the way they have been able to handle stress, and cases where they have not failed because they have not been able to handle the stress. So here what you have to do is, you cannot actually just give me a general answer. Take that case and then relate it with the stress management failure and success, how the failure and success of stress management led to failure or success of the organization. So that's all that we have for today's class. Next class, next Thursday, is what we are actually going to do is, we're going to actually have a revision test on unit 6 and 7. And if you have any queries, doubts, do let me know. So I'll see you next week at the same time.